G'day everyone. This one's a little bit different. This one is actually a swapcast with Apex Unleashed. Apex Unleashed is run by former guest and original coder Damian Piotto. And look, Damian's format and subject matter is a bit different to us here at UTC, and he had me on to be a little controversial. And look, we discussed everything from self-development to the current COVID stuff. And look, we're not on separate sides of the fence. We have differing opinions, and it's always good to sit down and unpack a topic. And look, I love the fact that Damian has launched his podcast, and I wish him the best with it. And I think it's excellent to see how far he's come in his journey. We had Damian's friend Sara join us for this one too, and it's always good to have a differing perspective, and I think a female perspective, and she probably kept me and Damian somewhat in line. However, look, this is a really interesting conversation. I did want to get it out to my listeners, mainly because I'm pushing myself in a bit of a different direction, accepting these opportunities when they come up, and it gives you guys a chance to see me in a different light and, you know, be interviewed and those sorts of things. We're not going to continue to go on about the current situation. However, I thought it imperative that I posted this one quickly. This is about 2 days old, 3 days old. However, the reason is that, you know, this stuff is moving so fast. So this is the 30th of January 2022. So, you know, there is a convoys apparently all over the globe converging on their parliamentary houses, and there is thousands of trucks and vehicles currently heading towards Canberra, which they'll arrive tomorrow. And what has also happened is many documents have been served to the leaders of this country through the police, and the police were given 7 days to comply, and that's tomorrow as well. I'm not entirely sure what's going to come of it. However, I thought this episode was imperative to get out quickly, just for my listeners, because, you know, this stuff moves so fast. However, understand that we're not going to dwell on this. In fact, we got a new book report coming out, which we're going to start this week. Me and Angus, we're going to look at some of Max Egan's work, and Richard Cassaro's books. Well, I've got one, but I'm waiting on the other one before we start having a look at those. There's some stuff going on in the Azores. There's some interesting stuff with Malta, and I got back in touch with Laura as well, and we're going to do an episode soon. So look, I think it's pertinent to have these discussions. However, the podcast is going to continue on with the research and classic topics, and I do want to get back into some mental health stuff, and I'm talking to a few fine gentlemen about that as well. So enjoy this one. Give Damian's podcast a listen. It's Apex Unleashed. You can find it on Spotify. It's a good listen. As I say, different subject matter, different format. However, really proud of him stepping up and you know, in his profession, that's the topic matter that he follows, and that's excellent. So make sure you give it a listen. There's some very interesting guests on there and topics as well. I've got Patreon. I do mention that at the end. It's not something I promote very much, and I'm definitely re-engaging with the podcast this year. So, you know, if you want to throw any support my way, that's awesome. However, totally cool. If not, just enjoy and share. Be kind to each other. Be cool. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. Be disciplined. Prepare. And we'll talk soon. Cheers. Oh, before I go, I think it has to be the original song of the podcast. And look, it's interesting, the audio quality, have a Waiting for the World to Change. And not too sure what we'll finish with. However, enjoy that. Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
See everything Hey everybody, it's Damian Piotto here from Apex Unleashed, and I have one of the most amazing guests. I've been trying to get him on for the last 12 months. The creator of Unlocking the Code. Triffin, mate, how are you tonight?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
Look, I would love to say that you're a veteran of over 150 podcasts.
Yes.
And probably one of the key things that I think we've spoken about in the last 5 years, and for all our listeners that don't know Triffin personally, is that there was 2 years in between where the podcast wasn't started, but it was a thought.
Yes.
And Apex Unleashed talks about, picking your mountain to climb up and heading towards your peak. And I think starting the podcast, I think you'd be the first one to say, is that it was started as an idea of quest for self, and then it evolved and gravitated into something much more.
Yeah, I suppose if you want to go back, it actually started as a book. Right, so there is a book that I've written mostly that is called The Code for the Modern Man. If I was to redo it now, to be heavily revised. Okay, so it's almost irrelevant now, and more to the point, because of the things that I've learned. Right, it was sort of like it was a bit of a journey, sort of a book. Right, and I wrote it for myself. No one's actually ever read it, but there's over 20,000 words that have been dedicated to it. But from that, it was like. It was an evolution, because I'm an ex-radio DJ. I had a radio show in the Northern Territory in the late 90s, and the JRE, amongst other podcasts, changed my life. And as a teacher, I found that when I would speak about, well, as you said, quest for self, men's mental health, these sorts of things, even the megalithic stuff that we get into, the ancient advanced civilization, I found that the students would gravitate to that information. So I thought, well, there's actually a function now to put that on there. So yeah, Unlocking the Code is in its 5th year now.
And that's why we have first editions, right? Because there's authors that write new books.
Yeah.
So you would say that your first book is more of like an original series, and now you've got something to add to it, isn't it?
Look, I've had, well, you included, you know about the book. Not many people do. Well, obviously Apex Unleashed do now as well. And
awesome.
I've had people want to read it and want me to send it places. However, it's not something that I'm ready to do just yet.
Yep.
And obviously we've been a little distracted over the last couple of years.
So we're about to get onto that. So this podcast tonight is going to be more around COVID-related events, and I think just an awakening with people about potentially about, thoughts, beliefs, systems, and how we view the world. So I want to take our listeners back, and look, we are recording in January 2022. So when you listen to this, the world could be very different.
Yeah.
Because changes and evolution are a wonderful thing, right?
Yeah.
And I've just got a comment here, is that you posted today about...
You want to start this? Okay.
I'm going to go straight into it, brother. Is that 1% control the world, 4% are their puppets, 90% are asleep, and 5% know and try to wake the 90%. So the 1% use the 4% to prevent the 5% from waking up to the 90%. So our listeners might not know this, but we do have a special guest running special comments to the side. She does not want to come onto the video content series. But Sarah, do you want to say hello to our listeners tonight?
Hello.
All right.
So okay, so why did I post that?
Great question.
All right,
Who are the 1%?
Well, BlackRock is one of them. Okay, but before then, you posed 3 questions to me because I asked you today.
Yep.
What questions you wanted to ask me, right? So I think before we jump into COVID, I think it's important to probably address. So you asked me, why do I not like being controlled?
Okay, well that's open to any thought leaders, business owners, and adults.
Absolutely. I think, look, not delving too personally, however, I've been manipulated and deceived my entire existence.
Sure.
Okay. And in fact, I'm not ready to talk about it on the mics just yet.
Okay.
But a lot more than I ever thought has just come out in my personal life, right? So,
sure.
Because of that, I don't like being controlled because I do. And look, assumption is, can we swear on Apex Unleashed? Or?
So, yeah, you can, and YouTube allow it, so we're not going to get any strikes on it.
Well, that's not the swearing's not going to be the problem. But anyway, I think assumption is the mother of all fuck ups, right? However, because of my experience, I assume that people are trying to deceive and manipulate me purely because of what's happened to me. Okay, and because of that, I detest trying, because every time I feel like someone's trying to control me, I feel like they're trying to manipulate or deceive me, right? And it's interesting you asked me that question because that's something that's just come up, like seriously, really recently.
Okay.
And look, some of my story, but not all of it.
Yeah, of course.
However, the rabbit hole is much deeper now, and that is actually, there's unequivocal proof now that has taken place. But that's the reason I don't like being controlled. And I suppose it's more for me, it's more about freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom of whatever. And, growing up with the name like Triffin, right, people make assumptions.
Yeah, Harry Potter wouldn't have been a great movie when they heard of Gryffindor.
Oh yeah, that was the latest in a long list of nicknames. Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I've had a unique existence, and because of that, people try to. I'm one of those people that you try and put me in a box, I'll jump out of it just because you tried to put me into a box, not because necessarily though you were wrong.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But I'm just going to jump out of that box to.
Okay. So my question to you is that labels are a big thing, whether it's 2022 or otherwise. So there's labels we put on ourselves. There's how we feel about ourselves, which is a direct reflection of our behaviours. So labeling, is being labelled more important to you?
I detest labels.
Okay.
I don't.
Psychologically, though, you label yourself because...
No, psychologically, I like to sit apart, right?
To yourself.
In fact, no, not psychologically, but as far as labels are concerned, so like, throughout my career before I became a teacher, I've been project manager and blah blah blah. I was offered here's a quick story about labels or perceived stuff, right? We had a building in Edward Street. I was a project logistics coordinator, being paid very good money. They offered me a corner office in Edward Street on the 8th floor, and I told them to give it to someone else.
Yep.
And the entire management team were like, "Oh, but it's a corner office, like why don't you want that?" Because I honestly don't care. And in fact, I would rather sit with the team of people that are actually doing the job than sit apart. That status does not.
So that's more of a leadership thing, though. Is that
that's right.
Your values weren't aligned, so you didn't take on a role, which is a great thing to have as a person, because a lot of people don't live through their values, and we talked about this before we came on the podcast.
See, I look at things through a leadership lens, mate. And it's a story I tell in my teaching now. Like, I was the 9-year-old kid on the BMX with, milk crate hockey strapped to the front of my BMX, delivering papers in Ballarat in Victoria in the wintertime at 9 years old.
I've got scars of coming off those.
Yes,
type of...
I just remember cold, man. That's all I remember. Is just very, very. It's the like 80s, man. I was cold, okay. And I had a lot of asshole managers, and I've also, because of my name and my disposition, I'm a bit of a strange fella.
But are you, though? Because that's a label you put on yourself.
Yeah,
I am. Why would anyone say you're strange?
Why wouldn't you?
Well, because to me, you seem like you just own you own your thoughts.
That's right.
And
but that is considered strange, is it not?
Well, I disagree.
You know what I mean?
My question to you is that what do you consider manipulation and control? Because
it's more deception.
So if I'm knowingly saying something to try and position you to a place where I want you, that's manipulation to you?
Well, isn't it? Aren't you just saying manipulation? Yeah, Sarah's got it. Sarah's got 5.
Sarah, do you want to jump in and share that?
So, quick question, right? So, as adults, we manipulate and control most situations.
Mm-hmm.
So, even though
To suit our agendas?
to suit certain agendas. So, whether or not you're a business owner or a teacher or heck, even a freaking salesperson, right? So, it doesn't matter what level you are, but to every certain extent, we are manipulating a situation or a person or an individual.
That's true.
So, we may not necessarily like the higher kind of manipulation and control aspects, but don't you think that all of that is part of being kind of like our day-to-day life? This is what it's sort of like, as kids, we're taught that, and then we're fine-tuned that in our work and our employment and all that kind of thing.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because I was thinking a lot about this, because obviously knowing Damian, listening to Apex Unleashed, I sort of had a idea of direction where he was going to go. I'm the kind of guy, whereas if I had to give you the shirt off my back, I would give it to you. I wouldn't even think twice about it.
Yeah, you're a good man.
But I would never take the shirt off your back.
Yeah, you would literally need to be manipulated and controlled to be given the shirt.
Yeah.
So you could understand that it benefited not just you, but the person that you were going to give the shirt to after I gave it to you.
Yeah, that's right. I would be, but see, that's
self-deprecating.
But it's based in trauma. See, right?
Okay.
For me, it is anyway, right? Because I recognise, and it's taken me a long time to recognise that at times is not a positive trait. Okay, that's not something that serves me, right? Because you want to talk about personal growth, the things that I know you speak about on this podcast.
Of course.
What serves you, what doesn't serve you. I'm more than happy to recognise the things that don't serve me. I think when you talk about, it's one of the original ideas of Unlocking the Code, the quest for self, is it never ends, right?
Yeah.
So it's just different. It's layer upon layer upon layer.
And good, right? It's good that there's no ending.
Yeah, it's good. That's right. There's no there. That's the whole point, right? If you think there's a there, then you're never gonna.
I do my Sunday reflections, and destination happiness is something that I probably talk about every week indirectly, as I tell myself that story. Is that the destination is not where you're going to be happy.
No,
it's the progress. So I think what leads me back to the start of our conversation is that first book you talked about, that you said it's not relevant now to today's world, is that progress has happened, right?
Oh, look, I wouldn't say a lot of it is relevant. I'd say it's more from a personal standpoint. I would evolve my ideas on it. And I have sort of, there's a second draft on that computer, actually, that I've begun to sort of write. However, it's more an evolvement of ideas. I mean, you got to remember, man, look, what's interesting is that for me, I'm sitting here on Apex Unleashed, which I'm very happy to be a part of.
Thanks for coming.
However, that's an evolution, right? Because I know your story.
Yeah.
I know most of your story.
Good story.
You know most of it. Yeah, it's a great story. But the fact that you started your own podcast, I know where you were, I know where you are now, right? Which is much better, much healthier, much happier.
Of course.
More centered, all these sorts of things.
Very important.
That is the quest, right?
Yeah.
And
it's relevant.
It's relevant, and it's how you. Didn't you just ask if everybody's phones are on silent?
Yeah, but it's do as I say, not as what I do.
You rookie.
The hypocrisy.
Right?
It's my podcast.
Talk about manipulation, right? Hey? Silence your phones.
As you were.
Yeah. So look, man, I think it's the book thing's an interesting one. Like as I say, we are going to talk about the current situation, and that has just look. I tell you, I know you're about lessons and moving forward and stuff, right? So, one of the lessons that I've computed recently is the podcast stuttered last year. My podcast stuttered towards the end of last year for many different reasons. Some of the megalithic research, like. That's a whole other different story.
There was a docu-series that you wanted to get off the ground.
But COVID stopped that. You know what I mean? Like, there's all this stuff that
moving parts
that happened that was restricted. And I think what I did, and here's a thought pattern for everybody to think about, one of the founding ideas of the quest for self was that you can't allow what someone else does to affect what you're doing. That's one of the keys, right? And I think what I did in a sense was allow people to allow events and certain attitudes of people to affect my research and what I was doing. And that's something that I'm working through now. And I also think we're living in prophetic times, right? What happens now and has happened the last couple of years and will happen over the next 5 years will literally shape the human race for the next generation or two to come.
And just like the previous events have done as well, but because we're in a world of social media where everything's instant and people are more available to the information, is that what we're going through is nothing new. It's just the information is quicker.
Well, it's new insofar as hasn't been a global pandemic as such since the Spanish flu, so it's been over 100 years.
But I think also is that you can't get near any technology such as your phone or anything else and not know what's going on. So I look at it this way, is that there's all these things on Instagram and Facebook that's like you get to go and you get to earn $1 million, but for the next 6 months you get to go to this mega mansion, but you can't have any technology on your phone. And people are like, cool, I'll bring such and such. They won't be able to make it because people are glued to their technology. Like my phone, I get anxiety if my phone dies because I've been using it for making too many calls, because you don't know where you're at. Because as a salesperson and as a business owner, my life is connected to my phone. And I'll be, after this podcast tonight, is that I'll still be working after
through your
this.
technology, yeah.
Yeah, because it's important to me, because it's relevant, because that's the tool and vessel I use to actually run my business, and it's efficient. But I'm not saying for a second it's healthy.
No,
which
it's not.
Which leads me to my probably the most important question I have to ask you, is that so you're not up to the indoctrination of vaccinations and what you are and aren't allowed to do. So my direct question to you is that, so what's your plan to be self-sufficient? Because if you're going to oppose the government's rules, that mandates are not law.
Yes, they're not.
And we've got things in courts that tell us that.
Yeah, and none of the fines that anyone's ever been given are ever going to be forced to be paid. So
the education piece around that is that you can go to a status of FU, right, if you are self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from and what you're saying and what your belief system is.
What's my plan?
Well, my thing is that if you don't plan to be self-sufficient and to, get off the grid, then stop being the person that's trying to educate others. Because you have to show with your actions how you're going to do that. Okay. So when you ask me this question, right, it's a very broad question. And I suppose before we turn the mics on... Do you need the government's support to live your life? And the answer is no.
No, definitely not, right? So there's a couple of things I want to get straight, because I think our audiences are different, right? So Sarah shared an experience with a full-blown anti-vaxxer.
Sure.
Okay, that she had, all right? Majority of the people that have chosen not to take part in the experiment, because that's what it is, whether you want it is only available to be given under experimental permission, still to this day, right? In every country.
I haven't done the research, so I couldn't answer that question.
Right? And look, I thought I'm not going to go crazy town here. I could, because there's some crazy stuff out there.
Not my area of expertise.
No, I'm going to stick to the stuff that if anyone wants to look it up, they can look it up and verify it very simply. Okay?
Sure.
Bottom line is it's an experiment. Okay? It's a medical experiment that's being forced on us that we shouldn't have to be forced upon. However, the term anti-vaxxer, we talk about Instagram, Facebook, propaganda.
Sure.
Okay? You want to talk about the 1%? The CEO of Pfizer is also on the board of Reuters, and Reuters is basically in control of majority of the news sources that the corporate media control.
Which was happening far before COVID
That's right,
started.
Absolutely, right? It was already happening, the manipulation of media, okay?
But that's been going on for years and years.
Absolutely, but it's only ramped up, okay? So I detest the term anti-vaxxer. Now understand that I have worked overseas, I've travelled overseas, I've taken many vaccines. I've had adverse reactions to vaccines.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason that I chose not to be part of the experiment is purely because it is an experiment. And again, you talked about I don't like being controlled. As soon as they said you must, I went, fuck you.
So you're pro-choice. So you're not. It's not about being an anti-vaxxer.
Definitely
it's
not.
Like,
Definitely, it is pro-choice, man.
I want to make my own decision. I shouldn't be penalised by what I can and where I can and not go to.
Yeah.
And how.
Yeah, Sarah.
Special guest.
Can you just explain, I guess, what your definition of pro-choice anti-vaxxer is? Because I think that a lot of people are kind of confused.
Yeah, okay. So I think the problem is that what they've fed into, okay, so divide and conquer and fear and control are the easiest ways to control a population. Everybody wants to be on a team, okay? And then, but there's a further point to that where none of us have had. So I'm emergency response trained. Okay, I've been a trained firefighter. I've been an emergency response team member. I've attended fires, car accidents, those sorts of things, right? When an emergency takes place, you have a fight, flight, and freeze reaction. Now, you don't have a choice as to what that reaction is.
It's an instinct.
It's an instinct, right? If you have no training, then you're definitely going to react in a fight, flight, or freeze. And a lot of people have reacted in that manner, all right? And it's also a team thing. We want to be on teams, right? That's why there's left and right, red and blue, blah, blah, blah. Footy teams, anything, choose something, right? It's a human condition to want to be on teams. So I think these people that have chosen to label themselves anti-vaxxer, which I'm not, and honestly, I'm plugged into literally thousands upon, probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people across Australia, and then would be countless millions worldwide. We are pro-choice, right? And pro-choice is... the bottom line with this thing, here's the statistic. This is undeniable stuff that you can look up anywhere. The average age of death for COVID in Australia is 85. Okay? The average age of death for us as men is 74. For women is 76. Right? So the average age of death of COVID is 9 years past our mortality. Okay?
It's like any little piece of data, right? Is that I can talk to you is that a person who doesn't, and COVID is like your T2 cells, as you get older, it is harder for your body to produce them, which is what fights against COVID. So it's natural that the older you get, that this type of issue is going to cause that. But
when has the world ever been shut down for something that kills 90-year-olds?
When has that not happened? Is correct? Is that the reality is?
Look, don't get me wrong. Let me clarify.
Continue.
In January of 2020, because now everyone doesn't talk about. Do you remember the bodies in the streets? Do you remember that?
Well, it didn't get to us till March, but I believe cases were starting to be notified in November 19.
Yeah, November 19 into January 2020. And if we remember correctly, there's bodies in the streets. Yeah. We're all going to die. Blah blah blah.
Of course.
I had a fear response. My family, I had a fear. Everybody did, right? I was worried, but as it started to evolve, there's another side. So we talk about fear, control, divide and conquer. We talk about fight, flight, freeze, right? So I've dealt with emergency situations.
Of course.
I think the other thing is too is that I don't have a fear of death. Now, this is a good friend of mine. We were talking about this the other night. And he's like, there's a percentage of people. I mean, a perfect example. Yesterday afternoon,
there's no fear of the known because we all have that same fate. It's the fear of the unknown.
Exactly right. So yesterday I saw a lady in a park by herself wearing a mask, right? Now, there's no place in the world where that makes sense, right?
She's by herself, open air.
By herself, open air. It doesn't, blah, blah, blah. So what is that fear? I think it's mortality, right? Because I've looked death in the face, seriously. I had a window where I didn't come back. Like, I don't have memory of 4 months of a year of my life.
It's a place where you just wish people don't have to experience.
Yeah, I don't wish it on anybody, but coming out of that, and I think the thing is, do you know what, and it's so multi-layered, and I feel like I'm bouncing around, but I think all these points are important. I'm part of spiritual circles, you know that, right?
Yep. I respect it.
There's all these people who said, "Oh, we did the work. We faced our shadow. We did the dark night of the soul." La 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 la. What we're finding out is who did the work.
Yeah,
right? Who actually did the work? Because if you did the work, you're not scared about a cold and flu, right? Because that's the reality. What it is. Okay, the original COVID can be nasty, but so can the flu, right? It's something like 19,000 people in Australia died in 2018, 2019 from the flu. Did we hear anything about that?
Yeah, we're not reporting that 86,000 people got the flu today, and they've
yeah, that's right.
And even though the medication that they got doesn't really help them. They still got given it because it's like a placebo effect. And
Well, it's like 3,000 people a week.
was it
3,000, yeah,
Amoxil?
Amoxicillin. Yeah, 3,000 people a week die in Australia. 3,000. There's only 7 days in a week. Do the math, right? Do we hear about any of that from multiple different things?
Yeah, drownings.
Yeah,
car accidents. There are things that are causing issues that have contributing factors, and I get that. But my thing is, and what I've learnt from you in the last 2 years is that how does it help you to tell the government that their news cycles and what they're sharing that you don't agree with, that you're trying to help people get educated with them? Because a lot of people don't want to do the work. You talked about it. Yeah. Like, we've got to do this deep work to understand where we are. And that's why anyone that does self-development, our podcast, what we do, our businesses, Sarah will talk about this in her business too, is that there's a deeper meaning. But if the meaning is just to tell the government to fuck you and to fuck off and leave us alone, how does that help? Because...
Well, it doesn't, mate. Okay, it's a straight up answer. Yeah. It doesn't. Has my mental health suffered because of that the last 2 years? Yes, it most definitely has. But why? Why would I do it? Right? I think, we're referencing our phones. However, it's an interesting thing, right? Where people, it's an interesting thing where a lot of people love freedom movies, right? They love, here we go, freedom. Millions of people love movies that celebrate rebellion and underdogs who resist oppression. Yet in the real world, they obey rules without ever questioning authority. Ironic, isn't it?
But why? Because it's a safety net. Sarah, do you want to share that?
Well, the thing is, but the safety net is a system that we serve, right? You guys understand that, yeah? Well, the system doesn't serve us, we serve it.
I understand. Special comments, Sarah?
Yeah.
Do you not think, though, that it's easier for people to actually, just say, for example, if
Just get in front of the mic, Sarah.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's your first time.
Do you not think that it's easier for people to actually just go with what one person is saying as opposed to making their own decision?
Yeah, it is. It's the problem with critical thinking and the problem with actually doing your own research. Because, I mean, forever I could give you statistics that are fully verifiable that you could look up on the internet yourself. But I know, fully understanding that you guys won't do it, and neither will 90% of the people that listen to this. You know what I mean? But that should change your narrative, because we are being controlled. Like I said, fear and control, divide and conquer, the oldest. And the question is why, right? The question is, okay, why would they control us? Money's a pretty good motivating factor. You know, you can talk about the World Economic Forum, you can talk about Klaus Schwab, you can talk about the fact that our health minister in Australia isn't actually a doctor, and he was the economic consultant for the World Economic Forum.
And if we didn't have COVID, would that matter? Would people talk about it?
The thing about COVID, right? And you want to let's remember in 2019, like 4,500 years ago. Remember that, right?
It was a good year.
Yeah, it was look. 2020 was going to be a great year.
Hey, I still think it was pretty good.
Oh, look, it had its moments. However, this is the whole thing. In October 2019, this is no bullshit, right? Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, all these people met at a summit. And it was Agenda 21 or something like this. And this is no bullshit. They met and discussed about what would happen if a coronavirus hit the world. And then 2 months later it happened.
Governments
do you think that, like, there's no such thing as coincidences, right?
Well,
I mean, seriously.
But this shouldn't surprise us, is that governments and organisations go back and go, if we have this situation, how do we actually have that control? Because they're called policies and procedures, and we have them in every business, is that we actually allow for contingencies. And I use this, not to say I'm ignorant, but we actually try and make rules for people that
absolutely.
If we didn't have warning signs, there would be far less people in the world dying from not reading a warning sign than COVID.
Well, I personally think we should take the warning signs off and let nature sort itself out. But
we agree. All three of us agree as we laugh. But I go back to my comment to you is that I just had a bit of that comment is that being self-sufficient is emotionally and intellectually independent.
Yes.
So if the government isn't sharing information about updating you in the world, and you've got to make a decision based on what you hear from them, you have a choice being self-sufficient to not be plugged in and engage in that.
So self-sufficient, I think, is many, many, many different things.
Well, to me, it's... If you don't have to be plugged into the government's narrative, which you don't want to be.
Well, I haven't been for a while anyway.
So if you're intellectually not plugged into that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then that financially, obviously, you can be independent of that, living off the land and going back to what our forefathers and you and I have we've done 2 or 3 podcasts around
Yep.
prehistory and what
Yep.
that means, and
Yep.
that would have been a better life, I would say.
Absolutely.
Because
Okay, so let me answer the question as far as this sort of stuff goes. Understand, and this is the whole point.
So my question to you is that can you answer why are you still plugged into stuff that you don't believe in, that you don't actually support?
Because, okay, look, number one, as a teacher, a podcaster, and a truth seeker and a knowledge sharer, I feel compelled to... Thing is, okay, the quicker I give my rights away, the quicker I'll give them back, said the person who read no history book ever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, we have given a lot of our rights away in the last 2 years in the name of safety. You understand that it's for your safety was on the front of Mein Kampf. You understand that, right? That is exactly what the Nazis said. It was for your safety, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we could draw a dozen parallels there, but we won't do that tonight.
Every person in this world has had something happen to them that was imposed on them they didn't agree with, so that's nothing new.
Yeah, but it's being imposed on a global scale.
Yeah, but individually. So this
Who
is
do we read about? Do we read about...
is-
Who do we honour in the past? Do we honour the people who... The person who's been trying to coerce you... No, listen. The person who's trying to coerce you, force you, make you comply, censor information, burn books, right? Same thing. They're exactly doing that.
Yeah,
has never, ever, ever been the good guy.
I'm sure people have accused me of that too, but this is what it comes down to. You talk about individuals, is that all we have any emphasis and power on is the individual of yourself. So my message to people and what I want to talk to people about is that if we don't have control and we're not independent of who we are by ourselves, and we go back to the conversation of community, culture, and tribe, then plugging ourselves into a world of being self-sufficient isn't advantageous, because we are social beings and we are literally reliant
Yeah, but see...
on a tribe, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. But what you don't... The thing is what... If you are...
If you don't agree with all this, then you have to isolate from the world.
Yeah, but there's literally hundreds of thousands of people across Australia that don't deal with it, right? Have you not noticed that quite literally millions of Australians have marched in every single state and territory pretty much every weekend for the last 12 months, right? You look at the corporate media, they say, a few thousand people turned up.
No, because I've seen the videos on Facebook and there are thousands.
Hundreds of, if not millions of people
Why
have
is
been
that?
marching. Now, why are they marching?
But
So is that not your
Okay,
community,
so-
that's not your
so-
tribe?
so
You want
that's-
to talk about self-sustainability as far as food and fuel. If you don't think conversations like that are happening, and if you don't think I'm not a part of those conversations, about building
I
that
didn't say that.
community, about, am I in my own property and I've got 3/4 of an acre where I live, right?
Yeah.
Am I manipulating that property to grow food?
And you
Am
can
I-
thank COVID for your house price growing as well. Without COVID, without those prices.
Yeah, but
wouldn't
see,
have
I
gone up.
couldn't give a shit about that.
Of course you do. Everyone cares about that.
No, I don't, because I don't.
Because your girls, that matters to them. So it matters
Yeah,
to
but
you. course it matters.
What makes you think that either super or house prices or anything else like that will matter in 20 years anyway?
Of course it will.
What you
'Cause
you don't think that we're witnessing the fall of Western
You
civilization?
can't tell me that a tangible asset isn't important.
Oh, dirt is dirt, but the price is going to fluctuate between now and forever.
Yeah, that's why we buy crypto, right?
Hmm.
So we can be in the game.
Yeah, Sarah, you want to say something?
Do you not think, though, that it is nearly impossible to sort of segregate yourself from the government, given that you're living in
That's
a
my point.
country? Like, I mean, the thing is, right, it's easy to say,
Yeah.
it's easy to say that, something, I'm going to be independent, I'm going to think, I'm going to be self-sufficient, all that
Oh,
kind of
look,
thing, but
are we?
you're living in a
Yes,
nation
absolutely.
that's governed.
What I'm finding, okay, so this is an interesting topic, because, obviously with Optimus Prime or whatever variant we're up to now, right?
Hey, I'm just glad that it's in WA because their border restrictions
Yeah.
are bullshit.
Look, when
Because-
when Megatron gets here, we're in trouble, all right?
Yeah,
Trust
yeah.
me. However,
Omicron.
yeah, whatever it is,
It's got
it makes
six legs and an Asian.
it makes no difference, because there's whatever. What's interesting, because the pressure seems to be relieving, right? So when the pressure was heightened, a lot of people were discussing, like, if you don't think people have bought 100 acres out the back of your poon in the mountain ranges, and we're literally having very real discussions about having communities in the middle of
Let's talk to a
nowhere.
real estate agent about how regional centres have just boomed
Yeah.
by hundreds and hundreds of percent.
Absolutely.
Because you know what?
People are trying to escape the city. That's why, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And we're discussing that. If you don't think there's a real discussion about how do we grow food, you know, who's the teacher, who's a mechanic, right? If you don't think that discussion's being had, it is.
We had this conversation in a car driving to Toowoomba, is that if we lost electricity within 6 days, 80% of the
Absolutely.
world would be fucked, because they would have no idea how
No
to be
idea.
self-sustaining.
No
So
idea.
going back to Sarah's question and comment, which I really love and appreciate, is that Australia is copping so much shit from the rest of the world because we are the most overgoverned.
Yeah. We're more.
Country.
It's morphing into a totalitarian dictatorship.
And we are protected to a point where we cannot even know and make our own decisions because they get
Exactly.
made for us.
And that's the problem,
It's
right?
still
You are.
up to the individual to be the adult.
That's right. But
So
that why
stop
do you,
telling me about your problems and do something about it.
well, that's what I'm. Hey, I'm on the front line posting memes like a motherfucker, man. You know
That
what I mean?
is
I'm-
not the front line, my brother.
It is actually in the social media world. Is it not? Is it not?
No.
Okay, fine. What is the front line? Me and
Values,
my wife. No, hang on.
values in action, man. What
Okay,
are you
fine.
doing for you?
Me and
your
my wife.
family
Me and my
first?
wife started a Somerset Businesses Welcome All
Awesome.
Facebook page, and
I
we
love
got the
that.
local regional council to be non-segregation for
And you're
majority of the
knocking on
businesses.
doors and you're talking to business owners.
Yeah,
and
we
you're
did that.
talking
We
to
had a
people.
meeting of 200 people.
So
we
why aren't
actually
you
made
talking
change.
about that on social media? Because I didn't know about it.
Because,
On
well,
I
to be
didn't
honest,
find out about it on social media.
no, it was my wife's baby. I just
Yeah.
supported
As
her.
a side note, I'd like to think that Damian's suffering from FOMO. Sorry, just saying.
Right? You know, I am making change. Right? But when you talk, so self-sufficiency is another thing. There's a. Oh, hang on, I'm going to have to find it.
You can go to your references. It's fine.
Jack of all trades, master of none. But no one ever finishes that quote, right? So hang on a second. I've got it here.
So while I understand where you're going with it, and I think our referencing is really important, is that, you know, we want all this responsibility, we want all the authority to make a decision, but we don't want the responsibility or the consequence of the action to be accountable for the behaviours.
I think you need to be. The problem is that people don't want to be accountable, and
that's why we have demerit points on licenses.
yeah,
That's why we have rules and regulations. So this, you know, this
a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one, is the actual quote, but no one ever finishes it. Right? So you talk about, yes, okay, 80% of people, if the lights went out, would be stuffed.
And I want to, and I'm all for it.
Would I miss my phone? Yes, but would I be okay? Yeah. Can I start a fire? Do I know what to hunt? Do I know what foods are edible in Australia? It's a pretty simple one with Australia. Anything that looks edible, don't eat it. It's going to kill you.
But I know how to get to your place, is my point. So I don't need to know that stuff. I just need to. So, no, seriously, I don't need to know all this shit. I just need to know the person that does. I need to know how to get there. So here's the thing, is that who's the smarter person? The person that knows the stuff, or the person that knows the person that knows the stuff?
Well, as long as you can lift heavy things, you'll be right.
Oh, here we
I've
are.
got something for you to do.
Everyone's happy. Is that the best project you'll ever work on is you.
Yes, that's true.
And COVID or not, is that will remain true forever, because you as an individual and an entity have all the power in the world to impact your world now.
Yes, that's true.
COVID does not change that.
No.
All the other stuff happening in the world doesn't change that. Your ability to be self-sufficient and having an overgoverned society and getting noise from the rest of the world about how Australia has been indoctrinated with all this bullshit, while fair, still is not going to impact on the best project you will ever work on is you. And what people are failing to realize is that the power they have within themselves is far greater than anything someone will tell them will ever happen, but they do not take the actions.
Yeah.
Or they tell themselves they don't know how to.
Yeah, we don't have time.
And they
blah, blah,
sit
blah.
here on social media, listening to the news, doing all this stuff, but they're not actually helping themselves move their lives forward because of the choices they make. So stop telling me about your problems and telling me about solutions.
Okay, Sarah, you go. I'm just going to find something.
But don't you think, though, that as a whole, people have become complacent in the fact that, you know, saying yes, you know, something, I want to make a change, I want to, you know, COVID is really, really crap and all that kind of stuff. Everyone can agree that it's been a terrible time. But I've found in my own experience, as well as dealing with other people, is that people are very hesitant to make that change because it's uncomfortable, and people don't like being uncomfortable because they like being told what to do and how to do it and when to do it. It's like
and
a
this
lot
is the
like
thing.
wiping your ass.
Everyone wants to be the dude. Everyone says, "Oh, when it happens, I'm going to be the one that stands up." No, most people aren't. Right? You want to talk about? So I'm going to play some Jocko for you, Damo. We love Jocko, don't we, mate? Jocko Willing. This is called "All Your Excuses Are Lies." I'm pretty sure.
Accept that all your excuses are lies. Jocko.
I am a chronic excuse maker. How do I stop making excuses and get things done?
The chronic excuse maker. How do you stop making excuses? This is actually pretty simple. And I said it the other day, and you have to realize, you have to know, you have to accept that all your excuses are lies. They are lies, all of them. Think about the things that you tell yourself, the lies you use to rationalize taking the easy road. Taking the easy road and leaving discipline behind. Think about them. You don't have time. That's a lie. You don't have support. That's a lie. You don't have the equipment or the gear. Lies. You don't know the best way. Who cares? That's a lie. Or you're too old, or you're too young. Of course you're too old or too young. Lie. And there's, you're too busy. Sure you are. That's a lie. And you're too tired, or you're too sore, or you're just plain not feeling it. Lies, lies, lies. And the list goes on and on and on. And it doesn't stop if you don't make it stop. So recognize the excuses are not valid. They aren't. They're trumped up. They're conjured up. They're fabricated. They're lies. And how do you stop the lies? You stop the lies with the truth. The truth. The truth will set you free. The truth will stand, and the truth will deliver you from procrastination and laziness and the downward spiral that comes with a lack of discipline. So don't believe the lies, believe the truth. And the truth is, you have time. You have the skill, you have the knowledge and the support and the willpower and the discipline to get it done. So cast out the lies, burn them down, and listen to the truth, and live the truth, and go out and get it done.
Now, we both love Jocko. He's got discipline equals freedom. He's got good. He's got a way with words. In 3 minutes, he can deliver a message, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a couple of things to that. So I wanted to play that, but then I thought to myself, you've got the power within yourself, and everyone's, God's self, and, blah, blah, blah. Pretty sure people in North Korea might disagree with you. Okay? Right? And that's what they call a totalitarian dictatorship. And that's the kind of control that we're actually that's being gently forced upon us at the moment, whether you like it or not. Okay? That's what's happening. And you talk about the lies. One of the reasons that I continue to put myself out there is because I think critically. I look at the data, I evaluate the data, and I provide the data. That they've been telling us lies about everything that's been going on. Okay? And it will come out. I know it will. And it is coming out, right? And that's the reason, right? Because the truth will set you free.
But he also talks about is that it's all a lie. So COVID is a story you tell yourself. So I reference this almost in every conversation I have in the podcast, and people will be sick of hearing is that.
But it's the story you told yourself to the point where you allowed yourself to be experimented on.
So Peter Crone talks about is that life will present you with situations and circumstance to reveal when you're not free. So if you are self-sufficient to the ways you want to be, then whether COVID happened or not, then you as an individual have all the power and control to dictate where your life is led. And the problem with people, and Sarah brought it up, is that people are so scared to take action.
Yes.
Because whether they don't understand or they're scared or they'd rather be told what
They
to
are
do.
we are slaves to a system, okay?
But who taught you that? So this is where you and I agree. Media, messaging, outlets, communication. People who control those channels benefit
Yes.
in many ways. One of them is money.
Yes.
But what is more important to money than them?
The data that they're collecting on the collective.
Outside of understanding people's spending habits, behaviours and everything else, is that how much of this is about power to you?
I think it's all about. The problem
I
is
think
absolute,
your blockage
absolute,
is power.
Absolute
Power is the problem for you.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Okay? Do you want me to
Sure.
let me be blunt? The thing about people in power, there's no good-looking people in power. I know that's a bit blunt and a bit harsh. However, is it not true?
Externally,
Right?
but internally their soul would be pretty
Dark,
hard to look at.
Pretty dark,
No doubt.
right?
No one disagrees with that. We all know that.
Exactly. So, because they don't have the, I don't know, whatever it is, the outward power that you gain from being, in order to be confident within yourself, you must accept who you are. You must look yourself in the mirror, accept your faults, accept your benefits, accept your gifts, right? Most of the people that are in power quite obviously don't do that, right? Because we're in a place where the Canadian Health Minister is a transgender man who is overweight,
Sure.
right?
Not relevant to how I wake up in the morning and go to the
no,
gym.
no,
But
no.
continue.
And Joe Rogan is a conspiracy theorist and an anti-health activist, and he's got 5% body fat and is a trained martial artist.
But
Do you know what I mean?
2 years ago, no one cared about that.
2 years ago, Joe Rogan was still getting 1 billion downloads more than any other news source.
Yep. So why do they care about his propaganda and all these allied health?
Because
professionals
he's
that
trying
try
to
and take it?
reveal the truth, man. That's why, right?
Neil Young now won't be on Spotify because he doesn't like what Joe Rogan's saying.
That's right.
Has that got anything to do with COVID?
No, it's got to do with free speech.
So-
It's got to do with the fact that the thing is that you're tied to a narrative. It goes back to teams, right? How is the fact? Like I said to you, I don't know if I've said it. I said it earlier, right? So if we talk about, so Omicron's here, Optimus Prime, whatever it is, right? So I know lately there's been a couple of friends that I know that have gotten COVID that aren't
Sure.
vaccinated. Okay, so I guess you want to talk about community, you want to talk about self-sufficiency. At my house and at multiple houses all over Brisbane, people have treatment protocols. That
Yeah.
treatment protocol that you will not get if you go to the hospital.
Yeah, they just say go and rest.
They just say go and rest or have a needle. That
Yeah.
is the reality,
Yeah, get some Panadol. It's just like any other flu.
Yeah.
Just let it process out of your system.
right? But even before that,
Drink lots of
even the
water.
deadly Delta, you would not be given pre-treatment. You would just be told to sit in the hospital and here's another jabbity jab jab jab. Right? That's the reality. That is the narrative.
So
Whereas you talk about community, what happened was one of the boys on one of the signal groups tested positive for COVID. Within 4 hours, he had a care package delivered on his doorstep, which included the horse dewormer, just for record, right? The dreaded horse drug ivermectin.
we do know, and there's enough information out there to know that it's used for multiple things.
Yeah, I know,
not
but I'm
just
just being.
that.
Well, you wanted controversy,
Well, no.
so direct. Okay,
I
so
asked you about power, and we're talking about something else. Is that
well, it's all the same thing, right?
It's
If you've got the
not.
power to say that you can't get pre-treatment for an illness, that is something that the people in power have decided. If you go to a doctor in Brisbane, they are literally not allowed to prescribe you ivermectin. How is that right in any way, shape, or form?
And then we go to that
That's power, man. That's gross misuse of power.
So there's also that section of community in India that have wiped out COVID because yes, they got it. Now they have the antibodies.
Yeah.
Yes, they've treated it and they live their normal life.
But they used it with pre-treatment, not vaccination. They used a Z-Pack that included ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, which Trump said was bad.
Why aren't they sharing that with the rest of the world? Is it
because
about
they
power?
did it? Well, because Biden did a deal and said don't share it. That's the reality.
Yeah, but do you think a culture and industry is going to listen to that?
Do you think politicians literally have any power? I mean, the thing about the pharmaceutical industrial complex is they give equally to the left and the right? The money is...
What you shouldn't do is
millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, look, different conversation, but...
But is it power and money? What's the difference?
So if I'm...
What's the difference?
Well, here's the thing. You and I...
In a perceived capitalistic...
We're going in to get voted in by our constituents, right? Now, if I get given money from one party, right, and I get voted in, when they have agendas and bills and things that they want passed, naturally, what do?
You would prefer to do that. But
Because
the difference between me and you is I wouldn't take the money.
Yeah. But this is the thing, is that's what happens.
I wouldn't.
But it doesn't matter what you wouldn't do.
I know, but that's leadership, man.
So
the whole point is we don't have leaders like the leaders that we have aren't a leader's arsehole. I'm not saying Trump was a genius.
So you shouldn't be allowed to do that.
But letting Granddad take the wheel of the free world was not a good idea, right?
You shouldn't be allowed. If you get given money by benefactors, you shouldn't then be able to vote on something that benefits them.
Exactly.
Right?
You shouldn't be able to, but you can, because money and power in this modern world are no different to the other. So
is COVID about health or is it about power?
It's about power. It's no longer about health. It was about health. You'd be able to get ivermectin because you can make it for a cent, cents on the dollar. And just for the record, so a good friend of ours, we're pretty sure he got Delta because he was pretty bad. He had ivermectin in the treatment protocol, so he was shit, right? And he was in big trouble, right? Was contemplating going to the hospital, knowing what that would happen if being unvaccinated. So we dropped off the protocol. He had ivermectin in that. He took one dose of ivermectin, went to bed, woke up 100% on what he was the day before.
Well, progress is better than perfection. And look, I understand where you're coming from, is that there's the messaging about ivermectin is the reason why it's brought up as an issue because it's cheap to produce.
Exactly. You make no money out of it.
People can't make money.
That's right.
But you're telling me that there's medical research and doctors that are going, I'm not going to give you that because I know it's going to help you based on the fact that someone wants to make more money somewhere else.
A doctor, if you went to a doctor in Brisbane tomorrow, and I want actually do it and come back and tell us, right? Go to a doctor and say, I need ivermectin, I think I've got COVID. They will not give it to you. They actually passed a law to not give it to you. That is direct manipulation, right? You have any okay, here's another one. Old Palachuk, our premier, right? Old Pallet Jack herself, right?
I like that name.
Right? Her father runs the data bank that processes all the PCR tests. Right? Is that not a conflict of interest or what?
Yeah, but...
So every PCR test that she buys gets processed by her father and they make $1 on it.
People are in business to make money and they seek opportunity.
But didn't you just say money and power shouldn't mix?
What I'm saying is that...
Didn't you just say that as a politician you shouldn't be able to make those decisions, yet the Premier of our state is making that decision right now? And how many more millions of dollars is she going to make?
I think morally it's wrong doesn't mean it doesn't happen, which is my point.
But that's in the whole problem, right? The system is inherently broken. Legislate what? All right? Okay,
you can't legislate morality because what I think is moral and what you think is moral are two different things.
Yeah, but there's a general state of morality that okay, let's talk about morality then. There was a case in Parliament House where a young intern was raped by a politician, and guess what? Do you hear about that? There was supposed to be a national inquiry. That got swept under the rug, didn't it? There's a 90-year hold on a pedophile ring involving a lot of the parliamentarians of our country that they will not open it up.
I don't have the information.
I do. This is stuff you can look up.
But why they don't share it has got nothing to do with power, right?
It's got absolutely everything to do with power. It's about hiding. But my question is, it's got everything to do with power. It's got everything because they want to hold on to that tenuous grip.
So you're deflecting.
I'm not deflecting.
And so...
I'm just saying things that you don't want to hear. Because
I feel in my heart, in my heart as an individual, is that if COVID wasn't here,
If COVID wasn't here, I'd still be
people-
pushing the message of freedom because the Western
people
democracy
would
system is inherently
still-
broken and corrupt.
mental health issues would still be happening.
Well, they're worse now. All right, hey, you want to talk about mental health? Let's play a game on mental health.
I'm not finished. Without COVID, mental health would still be here.
Yes.
People would still be not understanding how to use their money correctly.
Yep.
People would still be having health and wellness issues.
But not to the level that it's happening now, man.
So this is the thing that's advanced, is that COVID has presented our world an opportunity to understand of where we are in life, and is that if the wheels
Yes,
can
and if
fall
we
off,
allow the politicians to continue to push the New World Order,
awesome.
right?
As an individual,
Or
you're responsible
yes,
for you.
but we just said that majority of people don't want to unplug themselves, right? We are sitting in a well-to-do suburb of Brisbane. Smell that. Can you smell the debt? Can you smell the millions and millions of dollars of debt surrounding us right
smells
now?
like freedom to me, brother.
Yeah, debt that you're going to pass on to your children, right? That's the reason
Look,
they are
there's more money.
slaves to the system.
There's money that's been printed out in the last 2 years that we won't repay in 250 years.
I know. We're literally $1 trillion in debt for vaccines that don't work. Okay? And,
Yeah.
you know, look, and as I said to you today, another fully easy fact. 159,000 cases of COVID in New South Wales up to the 8th of January. 99.5% of those cases were double or triple jabbed in
There's
hospital.
29 deaths. Really unfortunate that those people get categorised in a bundle on the news to say that your death somehow had greater value than the other people that died
That's
today
right. And if
for
you
different
watch,
reasons.
and pay attention to the wording, right? COVID-related deaths, death with COVID. None of it is from COVID. Pay attention to the wording.
we live in a world where there's so much information.
It's hard, man. Oh, the chopper's here. Come on, I gotta go.
It happened again.
They're coming for me.
Oh, look, it's good that you feel that that's going to happen. But it's a thought that as a society, we're giving COVID more power because we're giving it attention. So as an
Yes,
individual,
absolutely.
if we can create a world where as an individual you give it less attention,
Okay, absolutely.
we
yeah.
have to take this.
Yeah.
You're macro, right? And I hear you and I understand what you're saying, but I keep trying to bring back to the micro part of it.
Okay, let's do it.
Is that so? You are a family unit. You're a leader of your family unit as an individual. That's what you're responsible for.
Yep.
Your next door neighbor, you can impart that to them.
Yep.
Then they impart it to them.
Well, isn't the idea first you fill your own cup, right? Isn't it? It's the whole the whole drop in the water, right? But
You can't push your
help
ladder
people.
against the wall you choose.
Yeah. But let's drop COVID like it's hot, okay? Right? Mic drop COVID for a minute. Let's talk about, because you got me on here because I'm the host of Unlocking the Code.
So unlock this code. Why is every day that I get an update from the state and federal and health minister and everything else about the daily COVID update, how many people are in ICU, what are the hospital visits, why I can and can't go overseas, interstate, to that fucking state in WA where I can't go, even though they've got cases now, and if they get more cases and it spreads, then their border
Oh, look,
security
mate, if you go to
is bullshit.
WA, they're going to isolate you for 4,000 days and then they're just going to execute you. You're not allowed in anymore, right? It's just how it is.
But yeah, but again, it's just like it's fucking horrendous.
Yes.
Right? Is that the reality is why unlock the code of why do they give us the daily messaging? Why is it
Propaganda, man. It's propaganda at its finest.
Why is it under a magnifying glass? So you're telling me the whole of the world is in this cahoots together and they're sitting in a room and go, you know what?
No,
we're just going to do this every day
okay.
until people get the money. Until we get the money we want, we're going to keep doing this. It's bullshit.
How is it bullshit?
They're not doing this.
Do you
for
understand?
money.
Okay, so as we sit here, what is it? The 27th of January.
Okay.
Countries throughout Europe are dropping every single mandate, everything, right?
So like inflation, we're 6 to 8 months behind. Sorry, that's a finance.
Yeah, that's
reference.
true. No, well, it's a stroke. we're more than 6 to 8 months behind. Look, the problem with this is, and there's two sides to it, right? Number one, there is so much information, and there is a crazy, like you say, fully anti-vaxxer. Everybody that's had a vaccine is going to die, blah, 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 which is not true, okay? Quite obviously it's not true. Are they hiding the adverse reactions? Yes, they are, right? Is there more adverse reactions to this vaccine collectively than every other vaccine ever inside 12 months? Yes, there is, okay? That's the reality. However, there's so much information, man, and like I said, you want to talk about history.
No, I
Propaganda.
just want your opinion on.
I'm trying to unlock the code for you, man. The problem.
Why is every state and federal politician on the news every day telling us the same thing and updating
Propaganda, man. They
statistics?
want to hang on to their levels of control, right? At this point,
We're not voting any of them back in.
I know that's the thing. They're going to try and scare. The thing is that fear is a powerful tool, man. We know that. How many, like, we've all been our own personal journeys, right? How many times has fear kept us where we were? So many times, right? Until we learned how to get the courage to confront that fear. So for the 80% of people that have never experienced an emergency situation before, they're in a state of fear, which is why I saw a lady yesterday sitting on a picnic rug by herself with no one within 100 metres of her wearing a mask.
Maybe she was worried you were going to come over and kiss her. Sarah, you have something to say?
Yeah, Sarah.
Nope.
No? Okay. So, all right, you want a disturbing statistic? I want to drop COVID like it's hot because I want to come back to the God self. I think that's important,
Yeah,
right?
good.
But do you want a disturbing statistic? So we got rid of the plastic straws. How good are we, right? Yeah?
Yeah, now when
Okay.
I have a frozen
So
Coke,
give me, So how many years do you know those blue masks that everyone's wearing, the surgical ones?
the ones that I can still smell farts in, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The ones you can blow smoke
No,
through.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
Like, if I can still smell a fart,
The mask.
what is that mask doing?
I'm worried about how you tested that out.
I walk through a shopping centre. You never been crop dusted before? We're not editing that out.
No, we're not. It
Disgusting.
stays where it is.
What, it hasn't happened to you?
Australians are fucked.
Yeah. By the way, Sarah started.
Yeah.
She said that me and Damo were having a go at each other earlier, and it just got bad real quick. Just don't start us. Okay, take a guess for me. How many years do you think one of those masks? That again, you can smell a fart through, you can blow smoke through, all these things. It's basically a facial decoration. But how many years do you think it takes for one mask to break down in the landfill?
Something like 50 years or something, right? It's like a cigarette filter.
450 years.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. And how many of those masks do you think entered the ocean in 2020? They estimate. How many? What do
a
you
lot.
reckon? A lot is the number.
It's also like the shortage that they had in sanitizer and all the... Like,
hang on. Let the number of this sink in. 1.6 billion.
That just also comes down to the fact that Australian... Oh, no, sorry, not
Oh,
Australians.
thanks very much.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
Aussies,
sorry.
we just throw them all in the ocean. Fuck it.
No, I'm sorry, that's terrible. But that just actually
Biased.
comes down... That just comes down to the fact that human beings can be lazy.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
And the thing is, you talk about money, right? It's not just about the vaccine. Where are the masks coming from? There's going to be mask millionaires.
So why weren't
Where are the
all
PCR
masks
tests
available?
coming from?
So this is my thing. If like rat tests,
Yeah,
right?
where do the
we
rat-
got access to rat tests because of insider. Like it's not what you know, it's who you know, right?
Right, yeah.
So wait. So while you're waiting in line
It's
for
all
a
right.
PCR
We've got
test,
horse tranquilizer,
We've got
horse
a-
medicine.
whatever.
we have
Yeah.
that as well.
So my thing is that if all this shit was a conspiracy, then they would have made all this shit well in advance, so they could have monopolized it earlier.
Okay, I tried to pull this up, but there's a disturbing video that I saw where it's like, so apparently X amount of billion doses of the vaccine have been made, right?
There's
So-
another one coming, Novavax.
Yeah. But how many?
Not Novak
if you make
Djokovic,
one,
he's not allowed in
He's not
Australia.
allowed in anymore.
But
the
they'll
only,
let
the only
Novak's
sports
in.
star in the world that got kicked out for not taking drugs.
That's good. That's really good.
It's true.
I was very disappointed by
Yeah,
that. By
yeah.
the way, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. It was disgusting. It was totally. Anyway, don't get me started.
His forehand or
Yeah.
yeah, got you.
Gotcha. There's a video. I wish I could find it. I don't have it easy.
Well,
However,
it's not real then.
yeah, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen.
But if it's something like, okay, so there's, I think it's 1,090 minutes in a day, something like 30,000 seconds. I can't remember the numbers. But if you can get the X amount of billion numbers of vaccines that have been administered, if they made one every second, how the fuck did they come up with them all in 6 months? You're telling me this isn't... Like, it's like the Perspex things at the shopping centres, right?
You've worked in supply chain. You understand supply and demand.
I do understand supply and demand, and it's virtually impossible, right? How that they got this with the plastic things out at Fernvale within 2 months, right? That are form fitted, that had to be designed and engineered and all that sort of stuff. Were they pre-made? That's it's just a question. I don't know.
I have an
Yes,
answer.
Sarah's going nuts over there. What have you got?
I feel like I'm back at school. I know. No, but you guys realize that a lot of Western countries are actually behind in relation to the mask and the perspex stuff, because back home, like we've got them everywhere.
Yeah,
like in Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, all that kind of stuff. They're literally everywhere. It's been going on for fucking years.
Yeah, that is true. But I think it's
So they're not recreating. You know all this stuff.
But isn't that's a result mainly? And look, I'm not trying to cast
it's
aspersions.
pollution, and there's diseases that like don't get us wrong. We didn't have COVID.
Living in
diseases.
third world countries.
Yeah, that's not very nice. You talk about diseases. So how come the diseases that affect your home country,
SARS
all
2016.
the other home countries,
So
how come we haven't
Why
focused
isn't there a
on?
vaccine
You know what I mean?
and a
Like
booster for that.
Well, one of the main things I remember
agree.
talking a couple of years ago when SARS was a thing with a couple of people, and they were basically saying, "Oh yeah, Australia is very lucky because." They describe themselves, and this is wrong. I didn't describe you guys as this. I'd like to point that out,
Yes,
but
you I was there.
they described Australia as the butt of the world because you guys are so isolated from everything.
It's accurate.
But it is true.
That is
because
true. We are very
Arsehole is the
isolated,
second
yeah.
brain, but continue.
You
we
everyone.
are.
I'd like to preface this that everyone in Australia is lovely.
No, well, we're not. That's the whole point.
Jocko just talked about lies.
Yeah, all excuse.
No, continue. You're right, because so this is not new to other cultures.
No, it's
No,
not.
so this
but
is new to
why the
only in Australia.
Yeah, but why the focus on something that... the thing is too, right? You talk about why I chose not to be experimented on. Not only do I know, like I said, this is no bullshit, straight up. I know one person that died 2 hours after they're taking it. I know there's a 15-year-old boy currently in hospital spewing blood with heart problems. I know there was a lady that couldn't breathe, couldn't talk, and she was with her 4-year-old daughter when that happened. By all reports, there's been at least, and this isn't confirmed, so don't fully quote me on this, but let's pretend 10% of what I've seen. If 10% is true, that means at least 5 children have died as a result of the vaccine in the last 2 weeks, right? Now, if I said to you, you've got a 99, I think I got through to you with the diaper thing, right? It's okay. I've got a 0.01% chance of shitting myself, right? So I'm going to wear a diaper, but you need to wear one too, because in case I shit myself.
So your neighbour doesn't.
So your neighbour doesn't do it. How is it any different? You've got a 99.99 into like our age group with our fitness levels, right? Me being a smoker a little bit less than you guys. However, our survivability for this illness, regardless of which strain it is in the chances of us dying from it is in the 7th or 8th decimal of 1%. So I'm talking 0.0000000 and then a number.
Well, technically speaking, because I'm Asian, I'm going to outsurvive all of you guys.
Well, that's true. That's fine. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to wrap this up
she's-
because we're not going to talk about race and culture because we'll go down a path and I'll get strikes on the account.
You've already got strikes, brother. I'm
Lots
sorry.
of strikes. But so how do you feel 2022 will unfold? So I'll ask all the guests. So Triffin, you go first.
Look, I want to come back to the God self. Can we leave this topic and come back to the God self?
No.
Oh, that's not very nice.
I just want to know.
How do I think 2022 is going to play out?
Well, the reason
I've got how I hope 2022 is going to play out, and then I've got two concepts.
law of attraction. So we want to manifest positive things. So share.
I don't really have. Okay, positive side. The
How
ridiculous.
do you feel
The
about it?
how do I feel about for positive side as far as society? Hopefully, we catch on and we release the ridiculous mandates and the experiments like it is happening all over the globe. As we record this, there's over 50,000 trucks heading to Canada. As we record this, there is a Facebook page growing by the thousands pretty much every hour with truckies heading to Canberra. I hope that they release the ridiculous segregation and mandates over something that is really turning out to be not very much at all, and we all can come some sort of semblance of normalcy, but also that we hold the people. Look, I'm not saying that everybody's culpable, but I'm saying there definitely is some people that are. And the time where these things, it's like, there's the classic, we must accept the things we cannot change. How about we start fucking changing the things we cannot accept, right? And poor leadership and corrupt bureaucracy from the top down in pretty much every single Western democracy, right down to the local council level, needs to stop, right? Because if it doesn't, what's the whole point of this, right? We suffered for 2 years, you know, tens of thousands of suicides, tens of thousands of middle-class businesses. The list goes on. For what? Right? So the politicians could get away with it again, because that's what they do, right? So I hope that for the global society that justice is served, right? On the flip side of that, a boa constrictor releases you to give you a chance and then goes again, right? I'm hoping that this isn't what they would call, again, if you look at history, I hope this is not a tactical pause, right? Because there is a part of this that is potentially more darker and more twisted and more
like a basically just exasperation of air. We give you just some
we'll
air
let
to
you breathe
before we get you again.
Bang, get you again. That's what a boa constrictor does.
Literally sucking the life out.
Sucking the life out of you slowly, which is what the system we've designed does, and we can all agree with. That's why mental health. 90%
of Australians are vaccinated.
No, they're not. I don't believe that for a second. Do you know why I don't believe that?
So why
because
are they providing statistics in?
Because they want it's propaganda. They want to project it, right? If you look at the unvaccinated pages just alone on Facebook, there's millions and millions of people on those pages, right? There's only 23 million people in Australia, so the numbers don't add up. They just don't. Okay, you know, they think X amount of people are boosted. Most people I know aren't going to get their booster because they're seen as like, well, what is the point, right? And when in the history of anything have you had to line up for something 3 times because it didn't work the first 3 times? Right? You need your booster, right? Actually, you want to talk, you know...
So Daniel Albanese talked about it. It wears off.
Yeah. For what? Right? If you've got the horse medication, take that, you'll be fine.
Do you not think, though, that they're probably using this as a, like, similar to, you know, the flu shot? You get one annually, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
last year's flu, yeah.
Yeah, so do you not think that they're going to be approaching...
Yeah, absolutely they will. Absolutely they will. But
except they'll mandate it, and that's the problem.
That's the problem.
If it's not mandated, do you have an issue?
No.
And if you're allowed to do what you want because you're not doing that's been mandated, is there a problem for you?
Yeah, if I hadn't have had... If they had have said... Here's something. It's an experiment. We're not sure whether it works or not. But for those that want to try it, have a go.
Yeah, say
totally fine.
2 o'clock on a Sunday morning when people are out partying, 100% of people are taking that substance.
Yeah, but you know, it's
funny story.
But it's, to me, it's like, and I've got. The problem with me is I've got a meme problem. I've got like 5,500 memes on my phone. It's a big issue, right? However, one of them is a list of vaccines, right? So polio, think of the vaccines, 30, 40, 50, 60 years development.
Yeah.
If we are to believe the narrative, they put this one together in 6 months.
It's amazing how quickly the world can move when it's necessary, is what you've been told.
Yes, that's what I'm being told. But I'm also watching children have heart problems. Like, as I say, I can name 70 people that within circles that we know either directly or indirectly that are going to have life-changing, lasting effects that, and understand this, that 25% of myocarditis cases will die. And the current rate of, so it's, if you want to take those numbers into account, there is something around 9,000 myocarditis cases that have been reported in the since the vaccine rollout.
Yep,
25% of those people are going to die.
There's 2,000 people.
Another 25% of those people will never recover properly.
Yeah,
and the percentage of those people,
that
if they had have got any strain of COVID, their survival rate would be 99.9+%. So explain to me why.
Oh, look, the answer to my question was, how do you think 2020?
Oh, sorry, I went on a rant, man.
But in answer to your question,
okay, personally,
the side effects of anything you put in your body is unknown, and if you're so unfortunate that one of your side effects is that. Then that's terrible. It really is.
But it's being forced. You cannot work, you cannot play, you cannot do anything unless you take this jibbity jab.
It's sad that there's 9,000 people out of X amount of million that have taken it that have that side effect.
Okay, so
you can't forecast it.
No, well, You can, but if you don't,
You can't blame an entity or an individual on that, surely.
Okay, so we're not going to.
I don't like it.
We're not going to blame. We're not going to blame that. So, and this is the whole point, right? In 2019, if I'd have said to you, the pharmaceutical industrial complex has your best interests at heart, you both would have laughed at me.
Yeah, but you know,
because they're responsible for the opioid crisis, right? The antidepressant crisis.
80s,
Are you telling
70s.
me that you know what I mean? Like pushing the opioids across Australia.
SSRIs are responsible for more alcoholics being on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
than not. But if you, it's a whole different story. But prescription, but this is not this is not a COVID issue. This is something that's been going on for a long time. And Sarah, the question I want to ask you is that, how do you feel 2020 will unfold? Because ultimately, you're not going to get anywhere.
No. Can I finish with just a bit of sorry? You wanted me to come on here and pull my string, so I've been ranting. However,
sure,
I've
redirected you as well as I could.
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, 2022, I am trying to refocus and re-engage. I am re-engaging with the podcast, re-engaging with the research, making sure that I take time away from this, because at the end of the day, mate, you are right. How much effect am I actually having?
Well, it's
I don't know. You know what I mean?
Like
and what cost does it come at?
Your freedom of lifestyle.
Yeah,
it's cost you that.
Yeah, but I unplugged from the system years ago. It doesn't actually affect me. You know what I mean? I don't actually remember the last time I went to a restaurant but it was not even. It was before COVID, so
not an impact. But the fact that the opportunity is not there by your choice is the issue. I understand that.
It's the lack of freedom. But I hope that I want to sing. I want to sing Kumbaya around the fire with everybody. I'm pro-choice. I don't give a fuck what you do, but you should be able to choose to do it.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's it. Sorry, Sarah.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The question is, how do you feel 2022 will unfold? Based on the conversation, not just a conversation tonight, but moving forward, is that Australia going to follow the Europeans where they're going to remove mandates? Or are we going to stay true to our original thought patterns? Because here's the problem with original decisions. Australians as a culture hate double standards. We hate to get told you must, and then we go, oh, actually, we've got new information, so we'll change our mind. We just don't tolerate that. We don't work that way. So how do you feel 2022 will unfold with not just COVID, but how we view the COVID experience? That, as you said to me, is that there's such a magnifying glass on it, and that's such a daily topic. How do you think it's going to unfold? Will people remove themselves from the day-to-day and just get sick of it and just start living their lives? Or will they still...
I find a lot of people are doing that more and more.
Will they find comfort from the greater information and actually bear in and actually become more intertwined with it? Because I think it'll go either way. You'll have a section that'll be so committed to the cause, nothing you can say or do will change them. And then there'll be a greater society that's like, you know what? This is not important.
The problem is that double standards has been highlighted for years in Australia. Like it's like you guys, the government or people, they say one thing and then do another, and then you guys have very different. It's like a lot of push and pull. You guys have very different rules for sporting people as opposed to normal people or people who have celebrity status and that kind of thing. And that's
cognitive dissonance is a problem.
Well, that for me was probably one of the main things. I kind of sat there and I'm like, you're trying to protect the masses, and then yet you're letting in A-listers from Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, and they pick and choose whatever it is they want. Who's going to be isolated, who's not going to be.
And COVID doesn't exist at this party because it's pretty smart. You know what I mean? It doesn't exist at this party. We don't have to have COVID rules for this
because
party.
They've got a lot of money and obviously money. But for
me...
me...
It's the power that's attached to that money.
Money and power doesn't matter though, does it matter?
Well, for me, I
think it does.
I guess my because my business deals with people, we've had to implement rules where, if my staff and if my guys aren't vaccinated, then they can't come into the office, or they can't go into client sites, or they have to show proof of vaccination. Like when we go to a restaurant, we have to show proof of vaccination that we've been double vaxxed and wear a mask and all that kind of thing.
But do you fundamentally agree with that or disagree with that, or you're not in a position to say?
What do you mean about not allowing
that? Like that, the very things that you just said.
The fact that we
coming from Malaysia, which is pretty close to a totalitarian dictatorship, right, where rules are definitely enforced on you like that.
See, I've got quite a I think rather a bit of a tricky viewpoint. I mean, I am of the state of mind where, and I know this sounds quite blasé, and I don't mean it to be, but it's, I've been in business with myself and seen a lot of change throughout the years, where it is what it is. And so I know that sounds very carefree, and it's not that I don't care. I do care, but the thing is that this whole situation, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it, even though I want to, even though I've got obviously very strong points of view in relation to it. And I've seen people who have suffered. I've seen people who are sort of like gliding through, and it's not a fair situation a lot of the time. But the fact is that, this is the current situation. I can't do anything about it. There's no point in me. I can do certain things to help either my staff or my clients or, the people that I'm dealing with. But it is what it is. So it's about...
But do you not think that that's complying your way into tyranny in a sense?
Oh.
Because as an individual, haven't we just said that as an individual we have the ultimate power? But then you say, well, she'll be right, mate.
No,
So-
it's no. My opinion is not she'll be right, mate. It's very different.
Yeah.
I mean, the
But as far as
opinion
a
of
business sense,
the
you're
opinion
right.
of she'll be right, mate is a very Australian laid back way. Something. I'll let someone else
We don't-
make the
but
But it
decision.
is what it
create
is.
the
It's pretty much the
legislation.
same thing.
Well, no, it is what it is means that, something I like. If just say, for example, I've got several of my staff who refuse to get jabbed, whether or not they're pro-choice or anti-vax. Now, I'm not going to, like my anti-vaxxer, she chose to go different pathway because she wasn't going to be able to have the same, the same kind of benefits that, just say, for example, me being fully vaccinated will be able to have. Now, that was her choice, all right? And so she's made those decisions. Now, people who are pro-choice in relation to getting the vaccination, whether or not they want to, whether or not they don't, again, they've just managed to change how they're going to be working.
Which is what I've done.
Exactly, right. So me being, it's not, for me, it's just saying, something, I'm going to protect what's in my bubble. Now, that what's in my bubble, I've built close to 20 years.
Yeah.
And so it's not complying or not laying back and saying, oh, yeah, she'll be right. It's not about that at all. It's about changing and adapting the way that I'm working. I may not like it. I don't like it. Sometimes it makes me very uncomfortable. But this virus business is around. It has to be around. And so I've had to adapt not only how I work and function as a professional, but also how I work and function as an individual.
Yeah.
So
And that's
it's
completely understandable.
yeah. So it's not about being complacent and sitting back and all that kind of thing. It's about accepting the fact that I cannot change a lot because, the government has dictated that to a certain extent. And I have to change how I operate in order to survive.
But in your profession, I mean, you're a lawyer, right? As in your profession, aren't you, more than me and Damo are, uniquely qualified to actually try and make a change by looking at these laws and how they're being portrayed, and you know what I mean? Isn't that?
Yeah, and we do that on a daily basis. But it's also about the fact that I've got to also look at the people, the individuals that I look after and that are under my so-called duty of care. All right, so it's not only my staff, it's also my clients who are at the bottom end of the spectrum who don't have that education that, we have. That sounds terrible. But, they don't have that level of education.
We're all at different levels, and I think as we wrap up the conversation and when we go through our levels of understanding and indifference to some things, is that, you talked about all these groups and everything else. There's all these people on these Facebook groups commenting and whinging and complaining.
Facebook it's more the private messaging apps these days.
So
because
look,
Facebook shuts them down.
yeah, or look, whether it's Circle or something different that people are working within, is that if you think you're creating change by being in a group, whether it's being cancelled or not, is that the basis of change is not based around that. Is that, I fully understand is that 2021 in businesses was the buzzword it was the year of learning how to pivot and to understand. And I was speaking to an owner and they said to me, it's like, we're not getting the support from the government for ownership now because when we get shut down, we can only do different things and we've got all these restrictions that the government's not supporting us. Isn't the fact that the government topped us up for so long to get us through an unknown, why it bought them time to make decisions? oh, so now things aren't what I want it to be, so now I need government help? Is that my biggest... I'll answer my own question, and I wrote it down here, is that how do you feel 2022 will unfold? Is that people will slowly understand is that the government's not going to support them to the level that they expect now, and that they're going to have to be self-sufficient on themselves.
Self-sufficient, yeah.
And the problem most people have, and I don't mean to speak in a detrimental sense, is that do they have the capabilities of being self-sufficient?
No, a lot of people don't.
And why do you think the government makes these decisions on behalf of others? Because they know that too.
Yeah. But I mean,
and are they that terrible? Because they're supporting the masses. Now, we joked about warning signs, that the government just said, you know what, work it out. I think we'd have a far bigger problem than what we were talking about with COVID. And to be fair, it's not nice. It's not
these
happy
days.
to hear,
Yeah, I think
it's
so.
True.
Yeah.
Like,
look, I think, I talk to my classes about there's things that have gone the way of the dodo, and common sense, personal responsibility, and critical thinking are pretty much the top three there.
Because you've got to allow time for critical thinking. You have to be.
But you also have
own.
have the ability to think critically as well. And if you're in a sort of a fear state or something like that, you don't have that ability.
Because education never ends, and people actually think that when they leave school or university that it does. And that's their responsibility. So stop blaming the government for your problems.
Yeah.
And stop asking them for money.
And look, I suppose...
Because I'm not getting shit.
No.
But just because I could, would I take it? Maybe. But there's a lot of people in line in front of me.
Look...
Not because I'm smarter than them.
You're steering into a wider discussion as to whether or not a welfare society is a prosperous society. I think maybe... Look, we've had it easy, man. You know what I mean?
We're overgoverned. We are the most overgoverned country, and we are protected. There's no doubt.
Yeah, we've had it easy, man. But even like the Western world has had it easy. We'd have soft times, right? Soft times make soft men. You know what I mean? Soft men make hard times. Hard times make good
soft men.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah. And that post was that. It was on Joe Rogan, I think it was, and there was a guy walking through the Himalayas in the winter that men these days wouldn't even consider doing.
No. The thing is that if you don't choose to... I'm one of those people that makes myself uncomfortable on purpose. And when I say that to people, they're like, really? I'm like, yes. So, like, it's been raining a lot. So... I decided that one morning, okay, it's been 100 mils worth of rain. I know the track that I ride is going to be muddy and crap and wet and raining. I'm going to go for a ride.
Yeah,
voluntarily.
People challenge themselves in different
putting myself
events,
but see, people don't. This is the whole point, right?
That's not up to you to push them
but,
out into the rain on their bike on your track.
Well, it should. Maybe they should. They should harden the fuck up just a little bit.
But again,
that's a bit facetious.
Look again. So, mate. Let's go back to two things. Where can people find you? Because, what I want people to do is I want them to listen to this conversation and be like, I want to listen to this guy. And there will be people that do that. Because you know why? Because there'll be more people that think like you but are scared to say it.
Yeah.
And if they can listen to someone who says it, they're going to follow that.
Yeah, look, Unlocking the Code, Facebook, all the podcast apps, Instagram, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And look, I suppose I know... I did rant a little tonight, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on Apex Unleashed, and I know it's a little left of field to your normal content. However, I think having this conversation, we need to have these conversations. Discourse must happen. I'm not saying that I'm right. I will never say that I know everything. I'm not. In fact, the one thing that I know is that I know nothing, right? If we were to take a single stitch on this couch, that's what I know, and the whole couch is what I could know, right? And I'm well aware of that.
Of course.
That in the grand scheme of things, I don't know anything, right? I really don't. And if you come to us at UTC, we explore a lot of different things. However, we just want to explore ideas. We're trying to navigate the chaos. And I think one of the things we kept trying to come back around to, we kept, it's a hot topic, and we aimed for controversy, and I think we hit that. However, understand this, and I'm not, you told me to plug the podcast. There's multiple episodes to do with this, God's Self, the triptych, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Going back literally to the earliest indigenous cultures and the megalithic culture that goes back, we don't even actually know how far. There was a common thread, and it was the God Self. What the Western religion, the Abrahamic religions did, was externalize the God Self, right? You can never achieve perfection because God loves you, but he's broken, he needs your money, right? You can, right? It is the eternal balance. It's the left and the right. It's the dark and the light. It's the feminine and the masculine. The whole idea of being human is understanding that, right? And I think, one of the ways I can best encapsulate that, and it's something that I know I've said to you before, is that the human existence is like this. On one hand, you're a drop in the ocean forgot about. Okay? You're literally less than nothing. But on the other hand, you're the most powerful creator that ever existed, ever. And the idea of being human is understanding both of those sides and achieving balance within that. And we can do that. And what I think, and one of the pieces of research that UTC is dedicated to do is unlocking the code of that. Because it seems to be that not only was that a sentiment that was once upon a time echoed around the globe. When I mean echoed, I mean every single continent, every single country, regardless of colour, creed, sex, religion, all the stupid stuff they try and divide us by now. There was once upon a time when we all believed that the God self was achievable, right? And through that, by the things that are left over, the massive stone structures, we achieved unbelievable, amazing things. And I think if I had one wish to finish on a positive, is that if everybody could truly, you're never probably ever going to understand the God self within you, and that's the trick, right? But if we could all dedicate ourselves to achieving that balance and understanding the God self, just imagine for a second what 7 billion people trying to achieve the God self, understanding that we're all big on humans on a big blue ball hurtling through infinity. Imagine if we did that. What could we achieve?
Yeah, we are all powerful beyond belief. We just have to believe it.
What could we achieve? Well, thanks, man. I really appreciate it, and I am very, as a person who knows you and have been on the journey with you, man, I appreciate the fact how you've moved forward, and wish you all the best with Apex Unleashed. And let's do another one down the track that isn't as ranty.
I would like to look. We don't know what it folds, but it's like, when we do a revision of what the year was like, we'll go there.
Look, I'd love to do that, man. Let's come back in 6-12 months and see where we're up to. Awesome, man. Thanks very much.
Guaranteed. Thank you for tonight's special guest as well, Sarah. Thanks for joining us. And
the only time he gets up on the mic is when he says goodbye. Did you notice that?
Yeah, that's good. So again, it's Damian Piotto here from Apex Unleashed. And if you do want to ask any questions to Triffin, please share with us your thoughts. We will have comments in the descriptions below. We will have these links as well.
UTC podcast, Unlocking the Code. Get in touch with me.
Get on his Patreon.
Unlocking the Code 9@gmail.com. Yeah, I do have Patreon. It's not something that I promote very often. However, I do have Patreon out there. Any support that you want to throw our way is cool.
Like and subscribe and share your messages. Until next time, guys, have a great day.
Look after yourselves. Cheers. Just want to go again?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Go again.
All right. I know you been here before. No surprises settle the score. I know the darkness deep inside. Reckless rage, poison pride. I know the anger, I know the pain, and I know the fear we do not name. And the one who comes to find me when my time is through, I know you, I know you. Wow! I know you. Better.